This meeting is being recorded.
So our session today is about coaching through change. And it's about 12:02, so I think I can start. And we're all experiencing change all the time, right? I mean, we just got through the pandemic, and I say we got through because, well, it's still going on for some of us, but we went through a lot of change there, right? So we had to learn how to work remotely and learn how to lead teams that were remote and learn how to do so many things in ways that were different than what we're used to. And now, of course, we're always going through changes, but the big changes that are top of mind are, at least for me, are this artificial intelligence revolution, right? That ChatGPT and tools like that are some people are loving it and some people are maybe a little apprehensive about it, right? So it's all about changes. And then, of course, there's smaller changes that each of us go through in our own individual lives. And we bring, whether we like it or not, or whether we want to or not, we bring our whole selves to work. And so as coaches, how can we coach through those changes? And of course, me, myself, I have coaches and my partners, and I have a professional coach that helps me through things. And coaching can help really alleviate some of the stress and anxiety of change. And so that's what this webinar is really all about, is understanding change and how it affects people, and affects people differently, depending on how you're made up and how you approach, type of mindset you have and how you approach the change that you face in life. And then as a coach, whether you're their coach, have a title of coach, or you're their manager, or you're their colleague, there's ways to coach people through that change to help them gain insight into the changes and how they're affecting themselves, and how they can relate to those and deal with those changes effectively. All right, so we're gonna start by first giving you some ground rules for this session. We're using a tool called Mentimeter. And so you can just take your phones and just grab that, the QR code there that's on the screen. And that will allow you to participate in this interactive session. So there will be some questions along the way, and that will require your response. Good afternoon, Jerome. Welcome. I was just saying, just grab your phone and grab that QR code that's displayed on the screen, and that will allow you to participate in this session. Yes, and please do give me a thumbs up when you are in. Eliane, it's great to see you again. It's been a long time. Okay. All right. So once I see a few more thumbs up, either in Zoom or on the Mentimeter, I'm also going to copy this thing here. I can't put this in the chat. For those of you who would rather use your browser, just go to menti.com, and the code you would put in is 7654237. All right, looks like most of you are in here. I've got 9 thumbs up on my Menti, so I will move on. Myself, that's ICF. I'm a PCC from the ICF. All that means is that I've done a lot of coaching. I think for the PCC, you have to have at least 1,000 hours of coaching. So I have completed that a couple of years ago. And I'm also an IC Agile instructor, so I do a lot of training and education using the IC Agile set of course curriculum. So if you're not familiar with that, just visit our website. You can learn more about IC Agile there, or go to icagile.com. Either way, I'm also a SAFE certified coach, member of the John Maxwell team. That was my first intro to professional coaching, by the way, John Maxwell. They run a really good coaching program through their their consulting and training services. And then I've been involved in Scrum and Agile for a long time. So that's an old cert. I'm also one of the founders and president of Agile Meridian. And like I think it was Lori pointed out, our moniker is to deliver amazing. We try to do that all the time. Hopefully we're successful some of the time. So we're going to start off with, well, the agenda really is kind of covering the aspects of change and why people resist change, and then equipping you all as leaders, coaches, consultants, whatever your role is. How do you see the signs that people are under stress or anxious about the changes that they're facing? And then we're going to conduct a brief overview of the ICF core competencies, and we'll get into how those competencies, whether you're ICF trained or not, these are really simple, common sense approaches to staying neutral as an individual as you speak to your employees, your colleagues, your superiors, your bosses. And you hear them out and you allow them to speak their mind in terms of their anxieties or their stressors where you can help them. So that's our agenda for today. And so we have some new folks that just joined us. Welcome, Mary. Welcome, Snap. I know that's short for something, but I don't know what. and Wesley, Christian. If you would, I'm going to go back a couple of slides here. If you would all who just joined, use your phones and use that QR code so you can join the interactive presentation. So I'll give you a minute or so to do that. So just take your phone and shine it on the QR code and you will be in the presentation. And once you're in on your phone, give me a thumbs up so I know you're in there. Excellent. Let's see, how many we got? 3 times 5, 15 minus myself. That's 14 people. Are all of you in the Mentimeter? Or is anyone not in the Mentimeter? I should say that. And while you're doing that, I'm also going to put redo this in the chat here. So you can always go to menti.com and put in, this number 7654237, and that will also get you in if you can't do it through the QR code. All right, looks like most of you are in. I got 13 thumbs up on the Mentimeter. I'm going to proceed. The number in the chat is what you would go to enter on menti.com. Okay. We're going to start with a question. So on your phones, this question should come up. And the question is, why do you think people resist change? I'm going to wait for some answers before I, let's see what you guys are coming up with. Yes, absolutely. These are great. Creatures of habit, fear of the unknown, fear of losing control and jobs. Laziness, interesting. Fear, complacency, what's in it for me? They aren't bought in. It can be daunting. Yeah, change is not always positive, but it's always there. Absolutely. Not uncomfortable, too many unknowns. Whoever wrote laziness, can you elaborate on that? I can't hear if it's used, Leon, I can't hear you. No, okay, no worries. I mean, I think it's an important thing, you know, it's like people get, it's related to fear, complacency, and what's in it for me. I think people just get complacent. And it might be a lack of alignment with values. Somebody just put that in the chat. Exactly, right? So laziness to me is analogous to complacency. I'm good, you know, yeah, things are changing around me, but I'm good with what I'm doing. I don't want to change. I don't want to do anything different. Anything else anyone want to bring up? I like this one too. Fear of losing control and jobs. I don't know if anyone wants to elaborate on that a little bit. What do you think? Fear of losing your job. That could be a really a demotivating factor, right? In embracing any kind of change.
A lot of times, people don't know what's to come, so they might have to learn a new set of skills which they're not very comfortable with. So if they cannot learn the skills, they're afraid that their job will be taken away from them.
That's right.
Especially as you mentioned earlier about AI. I think a lot of folks think that that's what AI is associated with. You know, there's going to be a lot of loss of jobs there. So,
yeah, I think that's a common thread these days. Is this buzz about chat and its competitors, and it's like, you know, people that are using it are like myself. I use it all the time now. I was using things that were for a generation behind before that. I was using things to help write copy for marketing content, things like that. And now I'm using chat because it's just so much better. And so for me, it's like, oh, this is great. It's making me more productive. But for a lot of people, it can be very an anxious time, right? Because chat can take over coding work. It can do all sorts of things that people do today. Of course, you have to give it instructions on how to do it. But I don't think that it's going to be that long where these AI tools will be able to operate more or less independently. And so that is going to cause anxiety. And so it's about, how do you get over that anxiety, that stress, so that you can still be productive, you can still be a whole being at work and at home. That's what we want to talk about. You know, why do people resist change? And for those of you who just entered the session, if someone would mind putting in the code to join the Mentimeter in the chat, because I don't want to go back a bunch of slides, I would really appreciate it. Just put in www.menti.com in the chat and that code, and then whoever just entered can join the Mentimeter. Anything else you want to bring up before I go forward?
Well, yes, as coaches, we always coach change. And change is the reality of everybody, everywhere. The million-dollar question is, can we control it?
Yeah.
And number two, can we make something positive out of it?
Yes.
Because if we cannot control it, then why we worry? There are so many things we cannot control. And there are some things we can control. And if we can control, can we make something positive? There are so many things that are perceived negative. But if we think how to make it positive, then it's a good thing.
Yeah, you bring up a really important point, and that everything about coaching is about, it's about change. You know, there's some change in someone's life, whether they perceive it, the change or not. It's something that's gnawing at them, that's sort of bothering them, whatever it is, and they may engage a coach to help them think through those things. And coaching is really about seeing a way forward past that change, whether you can control it or not. right? There's still options available to people. And so that's a great point you bring up. So some of the same reasons that you brought up are on this slide, right? So reasons that people resist change. Well, it starts with our brain. It's the way we have constructed our reality. It's maybe it prevents us from seeing what's really out there. We're blind to possibilities because our brains are preventing us from seeing them, which is where coaching and good leadership comes into play. It could be familiarity. We are used to doing things a certain way. I get up every morning, I make my coffee, I eat my oatmeal, disrupt that routine, it's going to feel uncomfortable to me. It's not familiar. And so it might cause stress and anxiety, or we're familiar with a certain way that we work. As Agile coaches, what are we doing except engineering a change? That's the role of Agile coaching, right? Is to go in and help an organization change the way they work, change the relationships they have with their customers, to be closer to their customers, change the relationship they have with their employees, change the relationship the employees have with each other, working closer in teams to accelerate each other's individual capabilities to be greater than the sum of their parts. That's what we do as Agile coaches, right? But it's breaking the mold. It's taking them out of the familiar context and putting them in some new configuration. And it's going to feel ugly. It's like, I don't want to work with these people. I've never worked with them before. Before I was an individual contributor. I just had to answer to my boss. Now I got to answer to all of these people that are part of my team. How do I do that? Right? So it's breaking those familiar patterns of work. It could be cost. I don't want to change. It's too costly to change. I'm happy doing things the way we are. One of you mentioned laziness or complacency. This comes into play there, right? Or you know what? I don't even want to think about it. I don't want to learn anything about ChatGPT. It's messing with my mind. I don't want to. I'm very anxious about it. I don't want to even know about it. I'm going to put my head in the sand. I'm not going to learn. Or it could be, any of these things could be a reason that people resist it, right? It starts with the brain. It starts with the head. And then, of course, maybe your brain is ready for change, but maybe the culture in the organization isn't. You want to change, but your company doesn't. You want to do something different, but your boss doesn't support you. The culture doesn't support it. Any of these things resonate with you? Any of these reasons?
All of that stuff is always there, whether we realize or not.
Yeah.
Because even work is change.
Yeah.
We're changing product, we're changing services, everything is change. Sometimes you could argue it's the opposite. There is so much change, but how much change is adding value?
That's an interesting point.
And it's sometimes managing that change. So we have a positive value, because sometimes we accept too much change as the norm. And it
depends on the culture of the company, though, right? A lot of companies are very change averse. And
some others are the opposite. Some
others are the opposite. Yeah, so some that are change averse, and they're like, no, we've done this, the last 50 years, this is how we operated. We're not going to change. And then you have companies that are the opposite. They're always on the bleeding edge. They're always changing. There's lots of stress and anxiety all the time, right? Maybe it's good stress. I don't know. Maybe because of the culture of being the way it is, the people in the company are used to it. Okay, I guess we're going to do things a different way now. That's okay. We'll figure it out. We'll handle it. Right. So I think there's a balance there, to your point, Mario. is that you want to, as leaders, as coaches, you want to develop a tolerance to change, and you want to develop your people to be resilient in the face of change, but not to where it affects morale, engagement, bottom line, top line, all those things, right? It can have a detrimental effect as well. Anything else? Any other thoughts you want to add from anyone?
So what's ironic about all of this is how quickly we learned to adopt and adapt when the pandemic hit. And we were all working from home all of a sudden. So
that's a really good point.
Yeah.
So speaking of that 100-year-old company that was so stuck in their ways, I was consulting with one of them. They've been around for 100 years. I'm like, oh, there's no way we can, we don't need to, this was a company that did a lot of testing, SATs and AP exams, all that stuff, right? Everything's all paper. Students have to go in, fill out a paper form, and which is graded by a machine, error prone, all that stuff. And literally overnight, schools are shut down. Couldn't go in and take tests. So what does this company do? 100-year-old company, right? In the face of adverse change, you have no choice but to adapt. And adapt they did, right? They quickly moved projects that had been in flight for years, I don't know, maybe 5-10 years, were completed in months because they had no choice. They had to make a digital version of these tests available. So it's a really good point. So change can be forced, or it can be something that you choose. Anything else?
It's a great example because COVID modified and changed many paradigms.
Yeah, it sure
For,
did.
for decades, it's been the norm in agility that you have to collocate. And COVID didn't make that happen. But COVID brought other ways of collocating, even working from home.
Yeah.
Because you can organize in different ways. And you can work closer to your clients, because you mentioned that before about working closer to your clients. But how do we work closer with our clients, even not being collocated with virtual teams or the guilds or whatever?
Yeah.
We just need to be creative. And sometimes we have been forced. And it's the difference. The people or the companies or the teams who take change positively and make something positive out of it, then we succeed. The other ones, they just struggle.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, people fall into personas, if you will, right? Companies, organizations can fall into these same personas. You may have seen this before, the Rogers Innovation Curve, and these 5 social business personas, right? So the innovators, right? On the cutting edge, organizations, well, let's just talk about people first. People that are on the cutting edge, they want to be on the bleeding edge. They're in line waiting for the Tesla when it came out, right? The Tesla Model 3. Right? They're in line. They want to get the first car, and then maybe they're early adopters, right? You know what? I really want the new car, but I don't want to be the first one to get it. I'm going to wait. And that was me. I'm an early adopter of technology. I'm certainly not an innovator. I don't think. Maybe I am, but I'm an early adopter. I got the Tesla Model 3 about a year after it was released. Right? I got 2 years, 2018 version of it. Because I'm eager to stay on the cutting edge, but not so eager that I want to be on the edge, so to speak, right? And then there's the early majority. It's like the people that are still waiting, maybe not quite ready to jump on the EV bandwagon. right? But they're waiting to see, okay, when there's enough charging infrastructure in place and it makes economic sense, then I will buy. And then there's the late majority. All right, now everyone else has an EV except for me. Maybe I should do it. I mean, now is the time when I need to do it. And then finally, it's like, what, you know what? There are no more gasoline powered cars anymore, or gasoline is so expensive because there's no demand to refine that there's just economically not feasible for me to go buy a gasoline powered car. So I have no choice. I have to buy an EV now, right? So these are the personas that exist, and how you coach them, how you help them, how you lead them, how you work with them if you're a peer or a colleague could be different, right? Maybe you want to sort of slow down these people that are on the left side of the curve, these innovators. They always want to go try something new all the time. And so as coaching them, you might want to understand why they are so driven to be the innovators. What are they getting out of it, right? And the strategies and the things that you say and do and the questions you ask to the laggards may be different. What are you afraid of? What gives you anxiety? Because again, these are the people that are going to be very resistant to any kind of change, right? The ones that are on the right of this curve. What are your thoughts?
Most people are familiar with crossing the chasm, correct?
Yes, well, I am.
Yeah, so I don't remember all the details of it, but I mean, a lot of this is kind of what you're talking about. I don't know if you can elaborate on some of those points, I mean, because it's a foregone conclusion that with a lot of behavior, right?
Right. So, yeah, so the chasm is really, how you get the early and late majority to cross over into what the innovators and the early adopters are already sort of talking about as being, oh, this is great, we should all do this, right? So crossing, and if this is what I remember, I haven't read it in a while, but this is what I remember. This is what kind of stuck in my head from that, is getting those early, late majority, and of course the laggards will follow eventually, is getting them across that chasm and coaching them to get across that chasm. So when if we're talking about an agile transformation, an organizational transformation, you're going to have all these personas present, every single one of them. And the culture of the organization is going to predetermine how much of the population fits, where is the median line, if you will, in the population of the employees there. If the organization is more siloed and is more traditional, you're going to have a large part of the population towards the right because of the culture, the values, the whatever, the lack of shared knowledge and learning that occurs in an organization like that. And so taking an organization like that towards a more agile way of working is going to be harder. Still possible, but it's going to be harder. So you're working with the innovators and the early adopters within that company. There'll be few, and using them as catalysts to bring the others across the chasm. So as a coach, you're helping them, you're sort of multiplying your efforts as a coach by enlisting a small cadre of fellow conspirators, if you will, and imbuing them with the tools to be able to coach others, right? So it's really about coaching, it's about leadership and helping people cross the chasm. Brad is nodding, so I think I did it a fair amount of justice. All right. So, it's really important that as coaches, as leaders, as peers of the people we work with, that we see the signs. What are people feeling? How can we empathize with where people are on this chart, right? Are they on the left? Are they on the right? Are they somewhere in the middle? Actually, interesting, me and my partners, we did this, we had this conversation a couple months ago there's 4 of us, right? 4 partners, myself, Jolly, Mike, and Chris. And I am like way on the left. I mean, in some ways I'm an innovator, and others I'm maybe an early adopter. And Mike is probably late majority. And Jolly, and it's interesting, he's sort of moved over the last several, I've known Jolly for 12 years. He's moved to the left. He's certainly not an early adopter, but he's not a laggard, which he admits he was. And so people can change. My point is people can change. If you are now today late majority, that's your persona. I'll join when there's plenty of help and support visible. It doesn't mean that you cannot be an early majority persona or an early adopter. It's about coaching. It's about seeing the opportunities in front of you and seeing that the advantage, the cost benefit is there for you to adopt a little earlier. All right, so seeing the signs, right? So you talked about the chasm, there it is, right? So when you're coaching, you're facilitating, it's about seeing, you know, how are people, what's the body language like? What's the participation level? You know, it's harder when people are remote, right? People don't have their cameras on. There's only 4 of us today with our cameras on. I assume that you're all getting value out of this session and that you will speak or comment when you have something to say. But I don't know, right? So as facilitators, as coaches, you have to rely on every sense that you have, you know, in terms of tone of voice, in terms of how they phrase their chat messages in a meeting like this, in the context of how quick they are to respond to a query or a question that you pose, to gauge their participation level. You know, how engaged are they? Transparency, how transparent are they about their feelings, about their level of engagement? Engagement, of course. Inquisitive, are they asking questions, right? Are they looking to learn more, right, with the questions that they have? Are they looking to deflect? So are they inquisitive or are they something else, right? Not inquisitive. Do they say things like, yeah, Kumar, yeah, it's never going to work here. Yeah, you know, you don't understand our culture. That's not how things work around here. What are they saying to you? Are they looking at you sideways? You know, body language is an important thing, right? Are they saying things like, you know what, we're different. We don't do stuff like that. Do they worry about failure? Right? Are they psychologically unsafe? If they fail, their heads are going to be on the chopping block, right? Is there failure worry? So these are all things that you need to look for as coaches. What are the signs? And then you can sort of slot them into those 5 business personas, right? Are they innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority, laggards? Where do they fit? And certainly when you're building a coalition of support for any change initiative that you're looking for, you're looking at working with the innovators and early adopters first, in my view, because you want to build that cadre of catalysts that are going to infuse the rest of the organization with the energy and the impetus that will fuel a transformation. And it's no different if you're coaching one-on-one. You want to understand where they are. If you have a professional coaching relationship with someone, you need to do the same things. How are they participating? How transparent are they? How can you get them to be more transparent? What kind of questions would you ask them to gain more insight into what's going on in their head? You know, how inquisitive are they? What kind of sorts of questions are they asking? Same thing. Thoughts? Questions?
Sometimes the real world is really complex. And in reality, we have like competing changes. And sometimes the innovator becomes the laggard because there is another quick thing they missed that they should have jumped and they didn't because they jumped on the first one.
Yeah.
And sometimes the laggards became the winners because it can happen.
Sure. Yeah.
It's very
Absolutely.
complex.
It is a very, I mean, people are complex. You know, if it was easy, well, we wouldn't have a profession, right? Coaches and things like that. We wouldn't be employable because people would know the answer immediately, right? They wouldn't need any help. But you know, a few slides ago, I talked about why people resist change. I mean, a lot of it has to do with what's between our ears, right? What's between the space here in our heads. And so it's a very complex. We are all complex. We all have our complexity. There's a universe of crap in our heads that we don't even understand yet. We don't even understand how ChatGPT works, these large language models, and how it does what it does, let alone our own minds. And so, yes, it is a very complex thing, and there are lots of moving parts. And so as a coach, what I would say, what I try to do most is understand where the person is right there at that moment, right? Because you can't help them unless they can recognize where they are right now. And if they can recognize where they are right now, then they can probably see a path to where they want to go. And, you know, how do you help them, right? So I love these competencies because they are applicable universally, right? So these are very specific things that you would do in a coaching relationship, you know, establishing a foundation, right? So for you as a coach working with the client, whether it's an individual or a team, it's ensuring that they know that you have a set of values and principles that you follow, that you follow a set of ethical concerns, that you won't divulge their secrets, that what they say to you, if it's a team or an individual, it's safe with you. You're not going to divulge it. It's between you and them. That you embody a coaching mindset. You're not their boss. You're not their friend. You're not their, I mean, you can be their friend, but it's kind of hard to be their friend and be their coach at the same time, right? But you embody a coaching mindset. What does that mean to you, a coaching mindset? I'm going to pick on someone. Let's see, who should I pick on? Jim.
A coaching mindset would be, in my opinion, how to draw out information from them, not so much of a do it this way or do it that way, but you need to be able to assist and guide them, sometimes to find their own answers, sometimes to find the right answer.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah, exactly. You're neutral here. You're a mirror in front of your coachee, whether it's an individual or a team. It's harder with a team, but it's the same principles apply. You're a mirror. You're reflecting back in a way that they can get some value. They can see things that maybe they're blind to right now. And so that's what that means. It's you embody that mindset with your actions, with the things that you say and do. And then once you've established a foundation, you're co-creating the relationship, right? You're establishing and maintaining that team, that coaching agreement, right? With the team that you're working with the leadership team you're working with the individual you're working with, whoever it is. What's our agreement? How will we work together? How often will we meet? Can I observe your sessions? All those types of things. You're cultivating trust and safety so they feel comfortable with you there. They want you there because they know that you have insights that they don't, that you'll be able to ask them questions that will draw them out of their perspective, right? Maintaining presence. We're going to get into this in a minute. that I actually I'm gonna save it for when we get there. Listening actively, evoking awareness in your clients, right? Because these things are all super important, that you're not cutting them off. And to Jim, to your point, you're not telling them what to do. And they may ask you, right, as a coach, they may say, hey, Mario, you know what would you do in this situation? I just need some advice. Don't give me all the questions. I'm tired of all your questions, Mario. You ask great questions, but I just want you to tell me what to do now.
A lot of people want that. You just
Yeah,
don't give it
lots of
to
people
them.
want that. What would you say?
Well, we need to coach them to first understand what is value for them.
Yeah,
You see, a lot of people jump into the how, but what we need to question is the why
that's right.
and the what.
Yeah,
Then we can work out the how.
yes. Now, I would say that when in a situation like that, it is okay to give your opinion. You can move between coaching and mentoring, right? Especially if you have experience in it, and say, you know what, I'm going to take my coach hat off and I'm going to put my mentor hat on. Make sure you be very specific about it, that, hey, I'm not in my coaching role right now, but I will share my experience and let them do with it what they want. You know, if they find value in it and they want to do something similar, great, support them in that, but do that from a coaching stance. And then finally, facilitating client growth, right? So to me, the change that we're trying to help them through, and all of these things are very important in helping facilitate that change. To me, the most important two things are maintaining presence and facilitating client growth, because they're going through a lot of churn and turmoil and anxiety. And so being present for the client is super critically important. And then facilitating their growth and their helping them synthesize this change in their own context and their own perspective. These two things, the relationship and the growth, are super important. Lori, you popped up. Did you have a comment?
No, I just turned my camera back on.
Okay, awesome. All right, so what does maintaining presence mean to you? I forgot I put this question out here. Well, I said what it means to me, but not what it means to you. So what does it mean to you?
Certainly being in the moment.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the other party needs to realize that you're in the moment, that you're not multitasking, and you know, well, yeah. So surely being in the moment,
Being there, being present. Yeah, certainly. Undivided attention, not multitasking, having control of the environment space without having control. I love this. What does that mean? Whoever said that? Having control of the environment.
For me, that means that it's kind of like the executive gravitas, where everyone around you has this feeling that you are in control of the space. You're not flustered. You're not out of, you're just not, you have a very controlled, calm presence, and you can exude that energy across the room. Even if you're not in control of the meeting or control of the environment, you still exude that control.
Yes. Jerome, I saw your mic went off mute. Did you have something to add?
I really didn't, but for me, as far as maintaining presence, actively listening and continuously providing advice as questions arise, and not presenting answers to them. I think that really helps them from a coaching perspective.
Yes, I will say though, that it's a fine line between advice and consulting,
Mhm.
right? It's a
Mhm.
fine line. And so when you are providing advice, you are consulting, you are providing the how. And so be careful. Be careful. It's needed. In fact, a lot of clients appreciate it, they want it, they need it, but be careful that you help them find their own way, find their own how, because then they're going to be a lot more invested in doing the work. It's not, oh, Jerome told me this, let's try it out. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to work. But if they come up with it on their own through your questions and through your insights, they're much more likely to follow through. What else? These are really good stuff. I love this one here. The body language says, I'm here and you are my focus. You know, I make this really a focus of mine when I facilitate anything, is that I am here for you. I want to make sure that everyone feels that, right? That I'm here for you. And that's super important. All right, these are great. Another question, how can maintaining presence help a change-averse individual? Wait for some responses. Yeah, I can't always, that's true. It's not a silver bullet. Whoever put that in, I agree. I think that's Elian. Meet the individual where they are, yeah. You know, it's building that relationship. If you remember the core competencies, it's a foundation, and then co-creating the relationship is the next sort of block. It doesn't happen in one sitting, in one meeting, in one whatever. It's building the relationship with them, being present and being there for them. Over time, that helps you help a change-averse individual. They feel that you have your support and maybe more open to considering change. Here, acknowledge where they are and why, help them feel safer. Their fear is addressed and they feel, I can walk with this person. I love that because that talks about the relationship. Yes, this is so true. Don't force the relationship. Hey, you know, I don't know about you, but most people I'm able to develop a good relationship with. Some people I'm not, and that's okay, right? People are different. You can't win over everyone. You're not trying to be their friend. You're trying to be their coach. And sometimes it's better if they have somebody else as their coach, a different voice, a different perspective. So don't take it personally if someone rejects you as their coach. I've been rejected plenty. This is really good stuff. All right, maintaining presence. This is all from our coaching class, by the way, which we're starting next week. You will get an email about it. Hopefully some of you will elect to join. I'd love to see you in the full class. So remains focused, observant, empathetic, responsive, demonstrates curiosity. So just like you're looking for inquisitiveness from your coachees, you yourself need to adopt a curiosity-based mindset as a coach. Don't be afraid to ask questions, lots of them. Open-ended. You know, try not to do the yes/no questions that prompt a yes/no answer. Open-ended questions. Try to stay away from the why questions, because that might be the language, right? It might put too much pressure. Why did you do that? You know, instead, you know, how does this help you move forward in your goals? And what did you feel when you blah, 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 blah? So the what's and the hows and different ways of asking the question without using the word why. You won't be able to avoid it all the time, but as much as you can, you should. Okay, we're almost out of town. Is comfortable working in a space of not knowing, creates or allows space for silence, pause, and reflection. Yeah, so these are all sort of some of the main tenets of maintaining presence. And in our class, we practice this, right? You actually will go off and you will practice asking powerful questions, maintaining presence, and all of that stuff. All right, I'm going to run through this a lot, right? So do you know what this is? I mean, obviously it tells you what it is. It's the Moses Bridge. But if you ask someone to picture a bridge over a body of water, this is probably not what they're going to picture, right? They're going to picture something more like this. It's a bridge. It's what you think of when you think of a bridge. It spans a body of water. It sits above the water, not like that. That's not a bridge. But what you're doing is you're trying to build a bridge with your clients, the team, the individual, whoever they are, so that you can build familiarity with them and their context. Right, and you guys mentioned this also, right? So you want to understand their context. You want to understand where they're coming from, where they are, so that you can help them get to where they want to go. All right, so some more questions. How can you help people discover their context? Yep. Thoughtful questions, ask great questions. It's really about that being curious, being empathetic, being curious, right? So you be able to open them up to things maybe they didn't consider, right, in the past, trying to understand them yourself. Yeah. All right, I'm going to move on to the last slide, last few slides are active listening. You guys mentioned this already in one of your comments on a prior slide, right? It's considering the client's context, identity, environment, reflecting, summarizing what the client communicated. This is a skill, by the way, is being able to reflect back on what the client, the team, the individual said without inserting your own biases into it. That's a skill. You have to practice that. Nothing that any of you can't do. Is just from my experience, it was hard for me at first to do that because I would be thinking things, I wouldn't fully focus on what they were saying. I would be inserting my own interpretations of what they said. And I'm like, no, Kumar, that's not what I said. Right? And so it's a skill and you work on it, you get better at it. And then, of course, asking questions, noticing, acknowledging, exploring the client's emotions, energy shifts. This requires that you are able to see them. So if you can't see them, then you have to rely on your other senses, the tone of their voice, the words that they're using, right? Probe that. Hey, Laurie, I noticed that your voice went a little lower when we were talking about blah, 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 yakety yak. Was there something there? Is there something else maybe that we can explore? Things like that, right? So using all your senses to get at where the client is. All right, integrates the client's words. Yeah, okay, all this stuff. And I want to sort of move along just to give a few minutes to all of you. I'm going to end here. All right. And just the last few minutes, just open it up to see if you have any questions, any thoughts on what you've heard so far.
No, I really do. Thank you for this presentation, and I thought it was very helpful and beneficial as I move forward in my coaching endeavors. A lot of these things that you mentioned about mindsets and active listening, I think those are some of the strengths that I do bring to coaching, and it really helps to get a reinforcement of, to let me know that I am on the right path, and I share some of the same attributes as other coaches.
Excellent. Excellent, Jerome. Yeah, coaching is really about, the best coaches are extremely self-aware. So it's really building a high level of emotional intelligence and social intelligence that will separate you from other coaches, right? Because again, you understand yourself so well that you don't have any agenda as a coach. You're there to help the other, whoever the other is, and however the other appears, whether as a team or as an individual. Yeah, I love that line too. Coaching helps humans interact effectively with others, right? So it's opening insights and doors, windows into the coachee's awareness of how they show up and how they present themselves, helping them through that change that they're experiencing. Let's see what else. Yeah, I'm gonna skip all this. This is the final slide, right? So this is how to make it more actionable. This is the final competency, one of the final competencies in the ICF core, facilitating their growth, integrating that new awareness, insights into their worldview and behaviors, partnering with them to design goals, actions, accountabilities. If they need to find, if it's a team, how will they stay accountable to their goals, right? How will you help them do that? Anyway, all of these slides will be available in the community. So you will get a link to join our private community, and then you will be able to see the slides and the recordings, this recording, so you can review it later on if you wish. And I'm hoping that you stay in the community and you become an active member of the community, because that's how we will all grow together. So any other questions before we sign off? I know we only have a couple minutes. Questions, thoughts, concerns? All right. Then, in that case, I will let you go to your next session, hopefully energized, and hope to see you again in the future. Oh, in 2 weeks, we're doing a webinar on the cumulative flow diagram, totally different topic. But how can you use the cumulative flow diagram, the CFD, to analyze where your team is and spot trends and in the data to help your team overcome whatever might be blocking them. So kind of a data-centric approach. So that's in a couple of weeks. All right. See you all later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.